defenders, then should be appointed. That's also another process. But essentially, the challenge that we have is some people are being appointed that some of us feel they're not candidates for the bench. They have no business being
That's
on the
true.
bench.
A colleague of yours said something yesterday. He says, well, sometimes some of these judges were actually appointed without even having experience in practice.
Yes. It's also a problem. For me, it is not. It's not really an issue. You don't have to be. You don't really have to have been in practice to be appointed a judge. Some of the judges who have done very well were in the Ministry of Justice. Some of them were solicitors in the Ministry of Justice. Some of them went to court as advocates in the Ministry of Justice. And today, some are retired and they did very well on the bench. It has to do with the individual person. First, to be a judge, you must be across. You must be somebody of integrity. To be a judge, you must be hardworking. You must also be given to being studious. You can't be a judge and not be studious. You can't be a judge and not have integrity. You can't be a judge and not live a Spartan life, so to speak. You see, if you live an ostentatious lifestyle and you become a judge, there are certain things that you're expected to give up. And if those things are not there, what then happens? It now encourages corruption. So if you know someone that is corrupt, why will you make such a person a judge? If you have someone that has an integrity challenge, why will you make such a person a judge? So you look at the individual before the appointment. And society is also open. And I like what the current CJN said about disclosing a list of people to be appointed as judges. So you can sit back. If you find a name, perhaps the man is your neighbor and you know him as a very cantankerous person, you know him as someone who does not have integrity, you know him as someone who is loud, you know him as someone who is corrupted. So why would such a person be appointed as judge? So you can write some sort of petition concerning that particular individual. Like I know something like that in a particular church, that if you're going to be appointed as a pastor, society is expected to write a number of things about that individual, including the church where the person goes to.
Well, we'll explore that a little further, but let's take a moment and go for the headline news with Adeshawa Josh. All right, then I guess, okay, can we take that now?
Absolutely. Well, here's a reminder of our top stories of this hour. Former head of state, General Muhammad Buhari, has endorsed the move by the presidency to grant amnesty to Boko Haram during his visit to Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. He said the amnesty plan will not only bring peace to the country, but will also put to rest the insurgents in the northern part of the country. Meanwhile, some Christian youths in the country are not in support of amnesty to the militant group Boko Haram, as they advise the federal government to stop forthwith the plans to extend amnesty to the sect. At a press briefing in Abuja yesterday, a group of Christian youths say amnesty for Boko Haram will prepare the way for more demands by other ethnic militant groups. The leadership of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, yesterday passed a vote of confidence on President Goodluck Jonathan. In a 7-paragraph statement, the Central Working Committee of the party maintained that it is encouraged by the laudable project of the President, calling on federal ministers to ensure that the programs are well publicized. And on the international scene, when foreign ministers from the G8 group of nations hold talks today in London, the Korean crisis is set to be top on the agenda. Japan is expected at the summit and is set to present a solidarity speech over the issue. Also, ministers will debate the Syrian crisis, Iran's nuclear program, and sexual violence in conflicts. Well, there you have the top stories of this hour. Sunrise Daily continues.
Thank you very much, Adeshawa. Well, let's get back to this, because, one would have thought that perhaps the bar and the bench were not doing enough in terms of appointments of judges. But now that he talks about the fact that they're requesting this list to be made public, so what happens if somebody complains? They strike your name off the list?
Not necessarily. First, it will be investigated. It's a process. It will be investigated, you'll be invited. But if the time frame for the appointment is near or short, what will happen is any person to be appointed as a judge will be stepped down until the issue is cleared. Because essentially there's no hurry to appoint anyone whose character, who possesses character flaws or who has integrity challenge being appointed as a judge. So the petition will be investigated, will be looked into before the final process runs its course.
You know, sorry, Chamberlain, in terms of looking at what a judge needs to be, it seems character is something that is of utmost importance. Now, yesterday, some of your colleagues, we had to put it was like as if we're trying to say which one would you pick first. If you pick integrity first, do you think that training is sufficient? You have said that training is not really, there's enough training now as you see it. But some people have argued that it's ad hoc training. Do you think that training is ad hoc, and do you think ad hoc training is sufficient?
Yes. You see, for me, you could also learn, so to speak, on the job. You could train yourself. They also have what they call in-house training. From time to time, judges go for refresher courses. So it's not limited. It's not a one-off thing. You train once for the purpose of occupying the office. So certain rudiments will be exposed to you. And it's like being given the tool of the judiciary in terms of candor, conduct, mannerism, language, comportment, and all of that. How to even write your judgment. All that is the first training that you get when you're sent to the National Judicial Institute. When you come out of the Judicial Institute, you now have established judges, so to speak. Now, upon your appointment, mind you, there's also what we call the pupillage arrangement, where a sitting judge would accommodate a new judge that has been appointed for the purpose of supervision, for the purpose of learning. And after that, you're now assigned to a court where the process starts. So it's not a one-off thing. It's a continuous exercise. It's not a one-off thing.
Well,
so for me, the training we have now is, you see, look, as a country, let's be honest with ourselves. We have enormous problems. You have a number of things that judges are exposed to. The final output, the final outcome is dependent on the particular individual. It has nothing to do with the system.
I'd like to look at the final outcome then. We talked about language yesterday, the language in which most of these judgments are written, and today we'll still find ourselves also putting some Latin phrases in some of these judgments, to the extent that some people would still want to go to the court to interpret a judgment from maybe a lower court. What do we do about the language now? Is it a must that such could be ambiguous sometimes?
I agree, sometimes, but not necessarily. You see, judges write their judgments based on what lawyers place before them. By our training and orientation, a judge is not allowed to place or put into whatever judgment that he or she is to deliver with his own personal perspective. Because the law is clear. So what the judge does is he listens to both sides. And he writes his judgment based on his own understanding of the law as presented to him by both sides, and then based on research that he has also carried out. Now, the aspect of language, in recent times in Nigeria now, the emphasis on Latin is gone. Many years ago, Latin was it. When you speak Latin, you're seen to have gone through proper training and orientation as a lawyer. But now, Latin is no longer there. Even in England, Latin is no longer there. It doesn't hold forth any longer. Judgments that although there are certain basic Latin words that we still retain, but to go to court and speak Latin is no longer there. I remember my son, the older one used an uncommon word. And the younger one now asked him, what's it all about? And he now explained it to him. He said, but why didn't you just simply use a simple word? Why compound my problem? So it's the same thing that we have here. Why don't we just simply use a simple word? Why use Latin?
Because even your client will be a little bit confused, not even knowing if you're doing a good job.
No, but that can be determined in court.
Because when she talks about the fact that judgments are capable of more than one meaning. And that's why when you see judgments and you hear lawyers, even let's say telling you, look, we have to go back to court for interpretation.
Not necessarily. You see, well, let's be honest.
Is it all politics?
It's all politics. So sometimes it's clear on the face of it. Why must you subject the judgment to interpretation? I remember one particular judgment that the lawyers who argued went back to the Supreme Court for interpretation. And Spoker said, what are you talking about? I mean, the language is so clear. What are you coming here to do? But you see, there are a number of other factors that I might not necessarily go into that sometimes fuels this desire to want to subject a judgment to interpretation. And it has to do with us again as individuals.
Is it part of the fact that my lawyers want to make more money? So
I won't say that, but you see, it's a commercial sector.
When we talk about money, it brings us again back to the clients as well as the general public.
Yeah.
She talked about confidence and trust, which she says is nosediving, and is very, very dangerous when the man or the average Nigerian, what's that word? Common man, no longer have trust and faith in the judiciary.
I won't say that. I won't say that. I'll give you an example. The Law Society of England